The United States is deploying the Dark Eagle, a new hypersonic missile battery ready to be used against Iran. And believe me, this is an extremely frightening weapon. The move also sends a very clear message to Moscow and Beijing. The game-changing weapon that the United States has still not used may soon reach deep into Iran. Today, we will bring you all the details. Is the war moving towards another round of fighting? The secret American plan to destroy the Revolutionary Guards in Iran is being exposed. In Iran, they are preparing for a scenario of renewed fighting, and they are threatening that they will reveal new capabilities. It also seems that Iran's military is threatening that they are on the verge of an extreme response to the United States. And it seems that right now, the Revolutionary Guards are running out of solutions. Because of the blockade, Iran is getting closer to breaking, and it is bringing an ancient technology back into use so it will not drown in oil surplus. And today, we will expose the intrigues at the top of the Iranian regime, because apparently Mojtaba Khamenei is alive, but is not controlling the Revolutionary Guards in Iran. And we will bring you all the details. And at the same time, the entire world is under pressure, because besides the fact that the blockade is choking the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, it is also sending global oil prices soaring up. And the Israeli Navy launched a nighttime operation in the heart of the sea. Naval forces took control of the Flotilla to Gaza. We will bring you all the details. I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel, and also the whole truth about what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. And this is the opening of day 62 of the war, Roaring Lion, or by its American name, Epic Fury. An economic chokehold in the heart of the sea is taking place. The United States is reporting airtight enforcement of the naval blockade on Iran. The commander of the United States Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, revealed that so far, 42 attempts to violate the blockade have been thwarted. For 2 weeks now, American forces have been enforcing, with determination and courage, a tight naval blockade that's causing major disruption to Iran's economic trade routes. In new footage that we have, the activity of the fighters is being exposed, rappelling from helicopters and also taking control of vessels. The estimated damage to the Iranian regime's treasury, more than $6 billion. The blockade is extremely effective, and we are committed to full enforcement, according to the admiral said. Trump's, though, saying that he shows rejection of Iran's latest proposals, and he's preparing for a prolonged naval blockade. In simple words, Washington does not believe Tehran, and global markets are already responding with extreme price increases. And right now, on the table for the American military is preparation for strikes against infrastructure targets and an operation to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And behind the scenes, the United States is again trying to build an international coalition to open up the strait. Following the jump in oil prices, the American president spoke with oil companies in an effort to minimize the impact of the blockade on the sea routes around Iran. At the same time, the president proposed creating a new coalition in order to restore ship traffic in the Strait of Hormuz to normal. And of course, I have to point out that the president has an excellent sense of humor, as you know. Donald Trump published a photo today with a new name for the sea route. He called it the Trump Strait, or the Strait of Trump, instead of the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm sure that the people in the Revolutionary Guards in Iran are furious when they hear that. How do I know? Because the threats from the Iranians, they keep coming from every direction. Mojtaba Khamenei is once again tweeting from the bunker this morning, writing that a new chapter is beginning in Hormuz. It is real, and this morning, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei is once again so-called broadcasting from the bunker without proof of life. We don't know if he's still with us or not, and declaring a new era without the United States and full Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. This comes as the United States continues to impose a naval blockade on passage through the Strait of Hormuz. The Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mojtaba Galibaf, declares that the enemies failed to achieve their goals, and another senior regime official threatens that a ground invasion will end with the mass captivity of American soldiers. Senior figures in the Iranian chain of command are threatening that Iranian patience is reaching its limit, and that they are on the verge of an extreme response to the moves of the United States. Iran is taking a desperate step so it will not drown in surplus of oil. It's bringing oil tankers back into operation in order to deal with the severe shortage of places to actually store the oil that they cannot export, while the American blockade closes in from all directions. And it's important to remember that Israel attacked and destroyed the emergency oil storage tanks at the beginning of this war. All the chaos in the regime comes from the fact that the Revolutionary Guards have completely taken over the government in Iran. Senior sources in Tehran revealed that the military arm of the Revolutionary Guards has taken full authority for itself, and Mojtaba Khamenei is being used as a puppet. He's only a figure of legitimacy and communicates only through recorded messages. Right under Trump's nose, the Revolutionary Guards are managing to get tankers to bypass the blockade using a new method. An intelligence company reveals that Iranian tankers are penetrating and pretending to be Iraqi in order to bypass the American sanctions. And we are talking about oil worth of $800 million that is being smuggled through falsified location data. But it is important to remember that this is very small money compared to what the Iranian oil sales system used to be. In the Emiratis, they are outlining a strategy for the day after the war. At first, they assessed that the war against Iran, the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, and the United States blockade would unite the Gulf countries. But now, it seems that the main feature of the new strategy will be independent actions by the states, and probably a move closer to cooperation with Israel. We will bring you all the details very soon. And today, you really should stay with us, because we will bring you all the details about the new American missile. It's fast, precise, and terrifyingly expensive. The new weapon that will be deployed in the Middle East against Iran. I'm talking about the new hypersonic missile, Dark Eagle, which became operational only in 2025. It reaches a speed of Mach 5 and has a range of about 2,800 kilometers. The cost of each unit is estimated at $15 million. I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel. And this is day 61 of the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And 1 second before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click the subscribe button, and most importantly, do not forget to look for me, Yair Pinto, and for Mati Shoshani on our social media platforms so you can get our first-hand, behind-the-scene look at what it's like to live in Israel under this war. Our senior Middle East affairs correspondent, Mati Shoshani, if Iran is really approaching the point of no return in the oil crisis, why is it still continuing to threaten instead of looking for a quick way out of this war?
Yair, that is a great question. We're really in this very complicated and complex situation right now in the negotiation and in the war. And sadly, we're in a position where both the Americans and the Iranians don't have much of an incentive to change the status quo. Let me explain that. For the Iranians, first of all, if they go back to war, it doesn't improve their situation, it just degrades their situation. It makes things worse for them, it makes things more painful for them. But if they continue with business as usual, They continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz. They continue trying to run their proxy soldiers through Hezbollah specifically at the moment. Well, it doesn't really cost them much aside from the financial loss. But if they negotiate and they give in to the requests made by the United States, and that's done publicly, that does cost them a lot. So they're doing what the Iranians always do. They draw out time, they waste time, they spread, they spread rumors about what they're planning to do, what they can't do, what they will do, and then they lie about what they said previously. And they're always playing this time game that's almost never ending, trying to wear away at the patience and the ability to be resolute and clear on the Western side. In the past, it's worked for them. Currently, it does not seem to be working for them. And you ask a valid question: well, why don't they give in? And we could talk about this for a lot, for hours, but it's not in their DNA. Again, I'm not talking about necessarily the Iranian people, but the Ayatollah regime that leads Iran. It's not in their DNA, theologically, religiously, culturally, ideologically, to say something along the lines of, we were wrong and we're making a correction. That's not going to happen. That statement is not going to come out of their mouth. It's not going to be written. It's not going to be communicated verbally or in any other kind of way. They won't admit a mistake. They won't admit that they were wrong in what they did. They won't admit that their path was incorrect. There's two main reasons for that. One, they're dictators. They claim to be a people's republic. They claim to have elections. Let's be real here. When a country is passed from a father to son without any type of election, aside from a committee appointed by their friends and family, so to speak, or people in a similar outfit, as is the case in Iran, that's not a democracy. That's a dictatorship. And dictatorships don't admit mistake, and they don't admit weakness, and they don't admit that they lost. They always blame the outsiders. They always claim propaganda. They always claim fake information. They always lie to their people and to their enemies, as the Iranians do consistently. But there's another more important layer here, which is the religious layer. The Ayatollah regime is a theocracy. It's a government of religion. And governments led by religion claim to be sent by God. And if they're sent by God, you need to follow their logic for a second. If they're sent by God and they're doing God's bidding, then how could they possibly be wrong? So it's one of two options. Your faith is or wrong, or you fudge the facts. And they've gone down the second route, which is lie about what's actually happening. And in that equation of not being able to admit mistake, not wanting to show weakness, they never have a morning where they wake up and say, you know what? This whole violence and hating on Israel and the United States, we were wrong about that. Let's try something less extreme. Let's get rid of the head garb. Let's get rid of the supervillain outfit. That's not happening. Let's be clear here. What the Iranian regime does is it lies to its people and it spread violence, and it continues to do so until they no longer can govern the people of Iran. That will happen quickly or slowly, we're not entirely sure, but they're not going to admit defeat. And this is where the negotiation becomes super tricky, because for them to be able to walk away from a negotiation and say that they won, and also at the same time have the US think that they're happy with the outcome of that negotiation, that is a very, very complex equation that I'm not sure is easily solved by anyone who's negotiating currently. So short answer, the Iranians won't admit that they made a mistake because it's against their ideology, against their DNA. They won't call it quits because currently calling it quits, admitting mistakes, surrendering to the American demands will cost them more than the financial damage that the American blockade and continued pressure on them is currently costing them.
Mati, what's the meaning of an American plan for a short and powerful wave of strikes? Is this a way to break the deadlock without being dragged into a long war?
That's a great question. We've been hearing about this CENTCOM blitz operation in Iran for some time now. We know there are plans that have already been drawn up for what would be a concentrated wave of attacks against Iranian targets. I mean, think about it. The US doesn't go to war without having, a substantial plan. And in this case, they have a very substantial amount of soldiers, of munitions, of vessels in the region that have battle plans of what happens in the hour, the day, the week that the negotiation officially ends, unsuccessfully, I should state, or that President Trump or the commander of CENTCOM says, we're going back to attacking the Iranians. When there's a short window of opportunity and you want to cause maximum damage, you need to know what targets they're going after first. And I can assure you, they have a very clear list of what's going to happen on the day that happens. But whether or not that kind of blitz attack is what really changes the outcome of the war, that's a little more complicated. And I need to really explain that for a second. This war can't be won, and hear me when I say this, it can't be won by military action alone. It can only be won, it can only be resolved fully with a diplomatic solution on top of the military. Military is important. Military is crucial. It is foundational for bringing any kind of substantial change to the current situation, but it won't end the war. Why is that? Because even if you did 30 more days of bombing Iranian targets and you bombed infrastructure and eliminated more of their leadership and more of their military production capabilities and buried even deeper into the ground the enriched uranium that they previously had and eliminated more of the scientists that carry the knowledge, you're not going to get to a place where there's nothing left that will allow them to keep fighting unless we do things that Western countries simply don't do, which is eliminate mass groups of population. Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling for that. I'm just stating the obvious here, which is these kind of wars don't end that way. They don't end the way World War II ends, in the back of a trailer of a train where two generals shake hands and one hands over his papers and says, we surrender on behalf of the German people, the Japanese people, whatever. That day isn't coming, guys. Let's take it out of our vocabulary. The way this ends is with an agreement, because currently the Iranian regime is here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They don't seem to have lost their resolve to hold on to Iran as a country or as a people. And therefore, in sort of an obvious development of thought, the next thing that's going to happen is not necessarily going to be a military conclusion, but rather a diplomatic one. That doesn't mean, by the way, that there will not be another exchange of blows, because it is feasible. This is important to state. It is very feasible, in fact, that the Americans will get tired of the negotiation games of the Iranians and will carry out another series of strikes. We know they're prepared for this. We know that the plans already exist for that, but that won't be the move that ends the war. It will cause more damage to the Iranians. It will further weaken their government, further reduce their capability to wage war, but it won't limit it completely. And again, just to remind you of something we've been talking about a lot in recent days, in a war of asymmetrical nature, such as this war, where there's the strongest, best equipped, best trained army in the world, the American armed forces, facing a much lesser adversary, the Iranian armed forces, the IRGC, that are fighting against them using terrorism. Well, the war doesn't end when the armies are eliminated. The Iranian army has been long eliminated. That's not going to change. What needs to change is the regime needs to decide that it is no longer worthwhile for them to continue fighting against the American armed forces. More so, and we've seen this also in recent weeks, the Iranian regime is already weakened. It is already split into different factions that are fighting over power. And even when one of them commits to some version of a ceasefire or some version of ending the war, what ends up happening is other factions violate that very same agreement. We've seen this repeatedly in recent weeks, both in action and in public statements. So ending the war doesn't happen by yet another substantial strike. Another substantial strike could change the situation, but it doesn't ultimately end the war against Iran. That happens with an agreement, that happens through negotiation, or when the regime in Iran falls, whichever happens first. Which one it is, well, I'll leave that to greater and better than me, because we're not sure what's going to happen. We just know that the next step here is reaching a substantial, meaningful agreement with the Iranian regime.
And Mati, what does the Gaza Flotilla affair reveal about the psychological and media campaign against Israel while the war against Iran and Hezbollah continues?
Yair, I find it to be fascinating that amidst everything that's happening in the Middle East right now, the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, the civilian ships that have been attacked, the war in Lebanon, the fact that the Hezbollah terrorist organization is threatening the government of Lebanon with death if they try to comply or reach a ceasefire with Israel. With everything that's going on, the countries of Europe, or several entities with Europe, decided that the number one thing they need to do is to bring aid to the people of Gaza, to break, in their words, the siege of Israel on the Gaza Strip. Now, of course, there are some very substantial problems with the facts that they're trying to claim. The main one being is what they're saying is a lie. Let me explain. These flotilla ships are meant as propaganda tools. They're not actually bringing aid. Most times when they're, when it's unveiled what's in those ships, it's a very small amount of aid and a lot of tools to generate propaganda, cameras, internet uplinks, etc. These people are coming for a show, they're coming for a publicity stunt. They're not actually coming to do anything meaningfully good for the people of Gaza. But more importantly, let's talk about the Gaza Strip itself. In the Gaza Strip, the war ended with a ceasefire, at the end of which Hamas, the terrorist organization, was supposed to be removed from the Gaza Strip. Important note here, by Arab countries, by Muslim countries. That never happened for various reasons. Hopefully it will happen in the future. And the Hamas terrorist organization has gone back in the areas still under its control to recruiting children to fight on its behalf, to beating, stealing, and killing their own people to maintain control, and of course to do what their favorite thing to do is to try and attack Israel. They have no reason to do this, by the way, aside from their ideology, but once again, what they do is try to carry out violent attacks against Israel. I'll add one more thing here. There is no blockade on the Gaza Strip. Israel moves in supplies on a daily basis. I've seen it with my own eyes. Yair, you've seen it with your own eyes. We've seen this time and time again. The trucks are coming in with all the food that these people need. But the big problem is Hamas isn't trying to rebuild the Gaza Strip. They're trying to destroy Israel. Gaza has never been their agenda, never been their interest. They're not even concerned with it. So these flotillas are a shipload of hypocrisy. That's what they really are. A bunch of people who mean no good. They're doing this because they want a virtue signal to the world about how virtuous they are and how evil everyone else is. They're looking for an easy win on a PR stunt that doesn't actually change anything on the ground. But when it came to, and I'm just going to summarize a few things that happened while this war was raging, to the ethnic cleansing of Christians in Africa, no flotilla. When it came to the Iranian regime, killing tens of thousands of its own people, no flotilla. When the Iranian regime started shooting ships full of Filipino or Thai or other nationality sailors in the Strait of Hormuz, no flotilla to save them. The Gulf states can't move goods aside from through planes in and out of their countries because of the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. No flotilla to bring aid to the people of the UAE or the people of the Saudi country or the people of Oman. No flotilla over there. The only flotilla is always against Israel and against the Israeli Jewish people. That's always the case. It's an act of absolute hypocrisy that has no intention to really change things on the ground in Gaza. I want to tell you one more story, Yair, as we wrap this. This might be a little known fact to many people around the world, but for much of this is about a year ago, when Israel was bringing in aid into the Gaza Strip, Israel was distributing the aid through an aid organization called the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an American organization. And there were UN organizations, and mark my words when I say this, there were government organizations of different countries in the world who, because Israel was the one distributing the goods and because it would look good for the state of Israel to bring those goods to people, they behind closed doors, they prevented that aid from reaching the people in Gaza, and they refused to participate because they didn't want to do anything that would be politically beneficial for the state of Israel, even though it was feeding the people of Gaza. Mind you, they admitted publicly that the majority of the aid they were bringing into the Gaza Strip was stolen and resold by Hamas, the terrorist organization, and was thus funding the terrorist organization. So where's the disconnect here? The disconnect is the fact that these people don't care about the Palestinian people. They don't care about the people of Israel. They don't care about ending conflict. They don't care about ending suffering. What they care about is hurting the state of Israel, hurting the people of Israel, and any tool that they can use on the way to that to seem more virtuous, to seem like they're doing the right thing, they'll utilize that tool, they'll play that tune until it's absolutely done. And this is an example of that. The Middle East itself has been at war for months now. There are a lot of people that need aid. Go to southern Lebanon. These people have been ravaged by Hezbollah, who's been tearing through the country, has been causing unbelievable damage to that country, forcing them into war time and time again. No flotilla to come and help those people. The same goes to countless conflicts around the world, countless minorities that are being targeted. And if it's not about a Jewish person, well, no one cares about it. That's the reality over here. So see this flotilla for what it is. It is a political statement meant to harm Israel. It doesn't mean to bring aid to the people of Israel. And I'd add one last thing. If you really want to break the siege on the Gaza Strip, there's one clear address for breaking that siege, and that is Egypt. Egypt is the one who's built an entire wall complex preventing anyone from the city of Gaza or the Gaza area from coming into the Sinai Peninsula that Egypt controls. They've even been reinforcing that barrier in recent months with both soldiers and physical barriers to prevent those people from coming in. So, and I know we're accustomed to this as Israelis. Hypocrisy is repetitive. Hypocrisy and hate of the Jews is historical, it's biblical, but we're always negatively surprised by how hypocritical, how duplicit in their values these people can be, sailing a freedom ship from Europe to people that already have food while ignoring the suffering of countless others when they could really use that money, use those resources to bring true help.
Yeah. And thank you very much, Mati. This really helped me understand better what we are dealing with. And to all of you, keep spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click on the subscribe button and search for Yair Pinto and Mati Shoshani on our social media platforms. Also go to our website, tbnisrael.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. The ceasefire with Iran may be in place, but no one in Israel really believes that this is over. The missiles may have stopped for now, but the injuries, the trauma, and the need to stay ready and prepare, that hasn't gone anywhere. And through all of this, who was there from the very start, from the very beginning? Magen David Adom. When the sirens went off, when the rockets hit, their teams, they were ready on the ground, treating the wounded, evacuating the injured, saving lives again and again. And now, even as things quiet down, they don't stop. They're restocking supplies, repairing ambulances, retraining teams, getting ready for whatever comes next because they know that it will come and they need to prepare. But to stay ready, they need support. They are entirely dependent on donations. And if you want to make a real difference in Israel, you can make a donation and save lives by going to savelifeisrael.com. Again, that's savelifeisrael.com. Help Magen David Adom stay prepared, strong, and fast so they can keep saving lives whatever happens next. Israeli Navy forces operated overnight in open waters against the Shamud Flotilla, which was making its way towards Gaza. The ships reported military boats that approached them, lasers and weapons aimed towards the activists, and disruptions to their communication systems. The IDF made clear that Israel is enforcing the maritime security blockade on the Gaza Strip, warning every vessel not to continue towards the coast. But this incident does not stand alone, because at the same moment that the Israeli Navy is stopping the flotilla on its way to Gaza, the United States Navy is stopping ships in the Persian Gulf, and Iran is trying to turn sea lanes into a tool of global blackmail. So, are we seeing just another maritime incident, or the beginning of a stage in which the sea becomes the central front of this war? I'm Yair Pinto. This is your Boots on the Ground report, closing day 62 of the Roaring Lion War, or by its American name, Epic Fury. And this day begins at sea, but it takes us straight into the heart of the Iranian regime. For more than 2 weeks, the United States has been enforcing a tight naval blockade on the Iranian ports. The commander of the United States Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, announced that American forces have so far diverted 42 commercial vessels that attempted to violate the blockade. According to American figures, 41 oil tankers are stuck with about 69 million barrels of oil that are worth more than $6 billion, which Iran cannot sell. This is not just another sanction on paper. This is economic strangulation carried out in the middle of the sea. Ships are inspected, routes are blocked, ports are choked, and the Iranian system that is supposed to turn oil into money is beginning to jam. When the oil does not leave, the money does not come in. And when the money does not come in, the Revolutionary Guards lose the economic fuel that sustains the militias, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the smuggling networks, and the entire axis of evil that has been built around Israel for years. Iran's problem is no longer only who will buy its oil. The problem is where to put the oil that has not been sold. Oil continues to come out of the fields, of the wells, but the tankers are not leaving the ports. Land storage facilities are limited. Giant tankers are becoming floating warehouses, and once there is no more room, Iran is forced to reduce the production. That's where the real risk begins. An oil well cannot be turned off and back on like a light switch. A forced shutdown can damage reservoir, remove and lower the pressure, allow water to come into the oil layers, block the pipelines, and require years of rebuilding and billions of dollars to restore the field and make it operational again. That is exactly why Tehran is bringing old ships back to life. The Iranian supertanker Nasha, built in 1997 and was absent from tracking systems for years, was documented again at Karag Island, Iran's main oil export terminal. This is not a sign of strength, it is a sign of distress. Iran is searching for every floating vessel, every oil tank, every old tanker, every temporary solution so it does not drown in its old, unsold oil. The energy market is already feeling the pressure. Oil prices have jumped to highs not seen in years. Brent crude is trading around $126 a barrel, and American oil is climbing above $110. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important energy routes in the world, no longer functions like a normal pipeline for global trade. It now functions like a pressure valve. Every Iranian threat, every American plan, and every tanker stop moves the markets. Everything is connected. Trump understands this very well. He sees the naval blockade as a central pressure lever, maybe even more effective than airstrikes. The idea is simple, not to reopen the entire war, but to let time work against Iran. Every day that the oil remains stuck, the regime pays a price. Every day that the ships do not move, the Revolutionary Guards lose money. And every day that the market sees Tehran does not truly control Hormuz, Iranian deterrence erodes. But the blockade is not the end of the story. It is only the first layer. Trump is expected to receive a briefing from the CENTCOM commander on new military options against Iran. One of the plans on the table is a short and powerful wave of strikes, likely focused on infrastructure targets, in order to break the deadlock in the negotiations. Another plan deals with taking control of parts of the Strait of Hormuz to reopen it for commercial shipping. Another possibility involves the special forces operations to secure Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. There is a double message here. On one hand, Trump is still giving the blockade time to work. On the other hand, he's making sure that Iran sees the gun on the table. The United States Navy, the forces in the Gulf, CENTCOM briefings, and preparations for rapid operations are all meant to tell Tehran, you still have a narrow window to surrender on the nuclear issue, but that window will not remain open forever. A new and especially frightening American weapon also enters this picture: dark ego. The United States Central Command is seeking to deploy the new hypersonic missile in the Middle East, a weapon that only recently became operational. This missile reaches speeds of about Mach 5, has a range of about 2,800 kilometers, and each unit is estimated to cost around $15 million. Its advantage is clear. It is fast, accurate, and extremely difficult to intercept. If it's deployed in the region, the message will not be directed only at Tehran. It will also be heard in Moscow and Beijing. On the Iranian side, they're trying to project power, but as the pressure grows, the threats grow more nervous. Senior figures in the Iranian chain of command warn that patience is reaching its limits and speak of a possibility of an extreme response against the United States. Senior regime officials view any interference with Iranian oil tankers as a direct threat to the survival of the local economy. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the Iranian parliament, claims that the enemies have failed, while Moshe Razai threatens that any American ground invasion would end with mass captivity of the American soldiers. These are not ordinary threats. These are the threats of a regime that understands that it is losing control over its main source of income. Iran can say that the blockade is not working. It can claim the oil will keep flowing. It can display messages, missiles, drones in the streets of Tehran. But if it is bringing all tankers back into service, if it is searching for floating storage, if it is demanding the removal of the blockade as a condition for any progress, that means the blockade is hitting exactly the right place. Inside the Iranian leadership, another drama is unfolding. Mojtaba Khamenei is alive, but the main question now is, where is he, how and who is he controlling? Because internal Iranian sources describe the reality in which the Revolutionary Guards hold the practical power, while Mojtaba mainly serves as a figure who gives religious and governmental legitimacy to decisions that have already been made. He does not appear in public. He communicates mostly through recorded messages or assistants, and the generals are the ones actually managing the campaign. This is a very important point because in negotiations with Iran, the problem is not only what Iran wants. The problem is who is even authorized to say yes or no. The president can speak, the foreign minister can travel, the mediators can offer formulas. But if the Revolutionary Guards hold the real key, every diplomatic proposal may get stuck the moment it appears and approaches the core of the problem: nuclear missiles, Hormuz, and Hezbollah. Tehran is now trying to turn Hormuz into a rescue card. The Iranian proposal is simple and dangerous. First, open the strait, remove the blockade, bring oxygen back to the economy, and only then let's talk about the nuclear issue. From Iran's and the Americans' point of view, that's exactly the trap. Iran wants to receive oxygen before paying a real price. It wants time to hide equipment, time to rebuild the launchers, time to move uranium, time to reactivate smuggling networks, and time to return the Revolutionary Guards to a position of strength. That's why Donald Trump rejected the proposal. He's not willing to remove the blockade only to hear vague promises. The American demand remains clear. There is no deal without real action on the nuclear program. And meanwhile, to strengthen the pressure, Washington is promoting a new international coalition around the Strait of Hormuz. The goal is to share intelligence, coordinate diplomatically, help enforce sanctions, and restore freedom of navigation without allowing Iran to decide who passes and who does not. Donald Trump, of course, did not miss the opportunity to add some psychology to this war. He shared an artificial intelligence image in which the Strait of Hormuz receives a new name, the Strait of Trump. For the Revolutionary Guards, this is humiliation. For Trump, it is a way to say that the Iranians have lost control of their most important asset. And for the global market, it's another sign that the battle over Hormuz is no longer only military, it is also psychological. And before we continue, if you understand how important it is to know what's happening in this region, we call on you to help us. Help us spread the truth. You can like this report. You can share it with your friends, your family, and anybody who needs to understand the Middle East without filters. And do not forget to click on the subscribe button here on YouTube to understand, to be updated, and to know how to pray for the situation. And while the sea is burning, the northern front of Israel is not calming down either. In southern Lebanon, the IDF continues to expose what Hezbollah tried to hide for years. In the Kantara area, a large tunnel infrastructure was uncovered, about 25 meters deep and roughly 2 kilometers long, only about 10 kilometers from the border with Israel. Inside the tunnels, forces are finding living rooms, water tanks, weapons, anti-tank missiles in the tunnels, and infrastructure designed to allow Radwan commando forces of Hezbollah to prepare for a raid towards the Galilee. This is not just another shaft. This is an underground terror city. It was built to allow terrorists to live beneath the ground, wait for the order, emerge quickly, and try to carry out what Israel learned after October 7th that it must never underestimate again: infiltration into communities, attacks on families, and the creation of national shock. The difference is that this time, the IDF arrived before the order was given. Hezbollah is not satisfied with tunnels alone. In southern Lebanon, weapons were also found inside civilian areas. This is including reports of weapons that are hidden in a children's room. This is the method: a launcher near a home, a warehouse near a family, a chef near a road, an ambulance hiding weapons, and then, when forces operate, the organization tries to sell the world a story about villages being attacked, ambulances being attacked. But in reality, Hezbollah turned the villages and the ambulances of South Lebanon into Iranian tools of war. In recent days, explosive drones launched towards the IDF forces have also continued. Israel identifies this threat as a major operational challenge. Small drones, cheap, more accurate, and harder to detect in time. The Prime Minister said an order has already been given to advance a special project to deal with the drone threat in southern Lebanon. It will not happen in one day, but the message is clear. Israel does not intend to allow Hezbollah to restore the old equation of attrition. Alongside this, it was reported that an Israeli UAV was shot down in Lebanon after a surface-to-air missile launch. In the same area, 5 Hezbollah terrorists were also eliminated, and the organization continues trying to operate explosive drones and test the limits of Israel's response. But the reality in the north has changed also. Israel is no longer settling for containment. Every warehouse, every launcher, every piece of terrain, and every attempt to rebuild power becomes a target. This is where Lebanon connects again to Iran, because Hezbollah is not only a Lebanese problem, it is an Iranian arm. The tunnels in southern Lebanon, the drones, the anti-tank missiles, and the concealment among civilians, all of these belong to the same doctrine that comes from Tehran. Iran builds a wall without standing on the border itself. It sends money, knowledge, weapons, advisors, and waits for the moment when another front can be opened against Israel. And at the same time, diplomatic efforts are taking place with Lebanon. But Israel knows there is no real arrangement as long as Hezbollah holds weapons and decides for itself whether the Lebanese state has authority over it or not. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar emphasized that negotiations are important, but the Lebanese government must take practical steps to restore sovereignty. In simple words, you cannot speak about a state while a terrorist organization holds an entire country hostage. This war has crossed much further borders. In London, 2 Jewish men were stabbed in the Golden Green neighborhood in an attack that was declared terrorism. The 2 wounded men, aged 76 and 34, were evacuated to the hospital and were in stable condition. The terrorist is a 45-year-old British citizen born in Somalia. He was arrested after being neutralized by police and by local volunteers. An Islamist organization called Ashab el-Yamin, identified as a group linked to Iran, claimed responsibility for the attack. The footage from the scene is hard to watch. A terrorist chases Jewish people in the street, attacks an elderly man at a bus stop, and tries to continue harming people until he is stopped. But the story is not only London. In recent weeks, there have been also reports of ambulances belonging to the Jewish community being set on fire, attempted arson attacks against synagogues, and attacks on Jewish institutions. Israel warned Britain that statements are not enough. When anti-Semitism becomes terror attacks in the streets, action is needed, not only condemnation. And that is what Iran's the broader war that Iran is waging looks like. It is present in Hormuz through the blockades and the ships, the Mosquito Fleet. It is present in Lebanon through Hezbollah. It is present in Yemen through the threats against the Bab el-Mandab. and it appears in Europe through incitement, extremist cells, and violence against Jews. Not every event is directly controlled from Tehran, but the spirit, the incitement, and the interest all connect to the same axis. And within all of this, there is another significant movement in the Gulf. The United Arab Emirates is signaling a deep change in the energy market with a move to leave OPEC and OPEC+. For years, this cartel served as a tool to regulate prices, limit production, and create power for oil states. Now, a central Gulf country is essentially saying, we want to act independently. If the Emiratis increase the production the day after the crisis, it can weaken the power of Iran and Russia and change the global energy balance. This is also a strategic blow to the anti-Western axis. Iran needs high prices of oil to fund the Revolutionary Guards and its proxies. Russia needs high oil prices for the war in Ukraine. If Gulf states begin to act more with the United States and Israel and less within the framework that also serves Tehran and Moscow, the whole region changes. Meanwhile, inside Iran, the crisis has already entered the people's homes. Inflation is soaring, factories have been hit, jobs are disappearing. Prices of basic food products have risen by tens of percents. Citizens see the currency eroding, the oil stuck, and the regime continuing to speak about the victory that's not coming. This is where the strategic war becomes daily reality. In the supermarket, in the paychecks, at the gas stations, and in the facilities that cannot return to work. The regime is betting that the Iranian public will hold out longer than the political pressure on Trump. Trump is betting that the regime will break before the world gets tired of the oil prices. Israel is watching both sides and understands that time is dangerous, because every day in which Iran is not defeated is also a day in which it can rebuild, hide, transfer, and plan the next stage. And that's exactly where day 61 ends. Not in real quiet, but intense quiet. The blockade is working, but has not yet forced a decision. Iranian threats are growing, but have not yet become a full move. The IDF is dismantling Hezbollah infrastructure, but the organization is still trying to test the border. Trump is keeping the military option on the table, but still allows time to work. Day 62 closes with Iran choking at sea, Hezbollah exposed underground, and the world understanding that this war is no longer being fought only in the air, but also in oil, tunnels, ships, and Jewish communities far from Israel. And if all of these fronts are already connected to one another, will the decision come through an agreement, through a blockade, or through another explosion that opens the next round? So keep spreading the truth. Follow us, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know where you're watching. The best thing that you can do is help us to reach more people with boots on the ground. You can do that by subscribing to TBN Israel on YouTube, by searching for us on social media platforms, and by going to our website, tbnisrael.com, hitting the subscribe button to the newsletter so you receive weekly updates of what's happening here. And this is a spiritual war. We discussed this multiple times, and I believe and learn personally that God is listening. He's listening when we are praying and calling his name. So let's do that. Let's pray for wisdom to our leaders, to the negotiation teams, for the children that are affected by these wars, and for the peace of Jerusalem. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another update.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.